Let's go on the record on cause number DC 1913657, Corey Austin versus Oscar Reyna Villagomez. Council, make your appearances.
Victor Rodriguez for the plaintiff, Corey Austin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Carrie Carter here for defendant Fastel Transport, Inc.
We're here to strike on a motion to strike counter affidavit. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It is.
Okay, let's proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can given time restrictions. We're dealing with the counter affidavit of Dr. Sharda, who's a physical medicine and rehab doctor. The only challenge that's been made in the counter affidavit is to the reasonableness of the billing. There's not any challenge to the necessity of care. As Your Honor is well aware, Turner versus Peril sets out that there's a greater burden of proof on these counter affidavits to discourage their misuse, to ensure that they don't frustrate that time savings we get through these 18.001 affidavits at trial. Specifically, there's two parts. We're going to focus on the reasonable notice of the basis portion, and it's our argument that that's lacking. But as well, this doctor has to show that they have knowledge of what is a reasonable and customary charge in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for what they're challenging. Now, in going through this counter affidavit, to me, it was very convoluted and hard to get through, hard to really understand exactly what was being said. I feel like there was a lot of different things being said. What I took from the kind of the overarching part of the counter affidavit is Dr. Sharda attempts to kind of redefine what a reasonable charge is. We all know when we're talking about a billed charge, that's what is the reasonable and customary charge in the area. Instead, Dr. Sharda attempts to say that it's not about the amount billed. It's about instead what a provider would be willing to accept, which obviously is reimbursement. It then goes on to say, gives examples of reimbursement like Medicare, Medicaid, work comp, that those determine the maximum charge. Further goes on to say that there's some discussion about health insurance payments, and then there's a term that they use in here, self-payers, and it seems to insinuate that self-payers either get services done for free or under financial assistance, or that they are able to directly negotiate with the provider. Now, the problem is Dr. Sharda makes clear that his knowledge and experience concerning reasonable charges includes a variety of payer types: health insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, workers' comp, and then self-pay is, again, this, I guess, some negotiated rate, maybe some kind of discounted rate. But again, it's all about him talking about reimbursement rates and what is accepted. The problem we have, Your Honor, is we're not talking about reimbursement rates. We're talking about.
Could you share screen the portion? Let me tell you what I'm inclined to do, but I want to have you share screen the portion on self-pay. I agree with you. You can't compare apples to oranges here. The reasonable rate for somebody who's uninsured is not the same as the reasonable rate for somebody who's insured. They don't get the contractual adjustments. They do have the ability to say, look, if this was a self-pay person, this is what the reasonable rate should have been. I do think that's okay, but I want to see exactly what they said. If you could go ahead and pull that up. My computer's glitchy.
Absolutely. Give me just one moment.
So just go to the self-pay portion.
Can you see the document, Your Honor, highlighted?
I can, thank you.
Okay. Let me find the exact portion. Sorry, this is kind of my highlighted working topic, but let's see.
Victor, I'm very impressed. I would not have been able to pull that off.
We've been taking a lot of Zoom depots, so we're learning.
I have two, but my technology just, I'm not as well versed.
No, it's you're doing a good job here.
Thank you.
Let's keep going down.
Okay. Let's see. Talks about.
Okay, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Stop. Wait, stop. Okay. Familiar with the amount. Okay, keep going. You can go down now.
So again, this goes into the routinely accepted part.
Wait, okay, so it says my analysis in this case performed an assumption that plaintiff Corey Austin is a self-payer and the amounts that are determined to be reasonable charge of the open market rates I believe are reasonable to charge a self-payer based on my knowledge and experience. Okay, that keep going down. Keep going down.
May I ask who this highlighting, is this your highlighting, Victor, that we're showing the court?
Yes, Carrie, this is just my internal document I highlighted to prep.
Keep going down. But I was able to determine, stop. Was able to determine whether, okay. Keep going down. How interesting how he did this. I haven't seen this. Okay. All right. So he's saying that the amount that a self-payer would pay is approximately 140 to 170% of the charge allowed by Medicare.
Right. He's saying that Your Honor, pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought. But the way I interpret it is that he's saying a self-payer pays more
Than Medicare.
Yes.
All right, keep going down. And if I have so many of these, I want to make sure I'm remembering this correctly. This is the one that has 7 different providers and they're only countering the one provider. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, there are 8 providers. There were 8 affidavits filed, and only this Epic Pain provider, we chose to challenge only this one.
Okay. All right. So I've read this. I mean, let me just say this. As you guys may know, I'm pretty strict on these counter affidavits. And so, but I do think this, and I don't allow you to go in and say, look, we should use the Medicare rate, or we should use the reasonable rate is the Medicare rate, or the reasonable rate is something provided by some, this is what health insurance pays. But I think the way that he's worded this probably fits within a proper counter affidavit. Probably, I can hear more argument if you want. So there's a couple options here. One would be that I just deny the motion to strike. I could be persuaded to grant it, or you could agree just to dueling affidavits. Have you all talked about that at all, or?
We have not. We don't. Our firm doesn't do dueling affidavits, Your Honor. I can just add one brief thing, and then my argument's over.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just find the portion, Your Honor. I apologize. I wasn't send these highlights where it talks about self-pay. Yeah, and here's part of my concern with even using self-pay, because sometimes we see these doctors saying, well, the negotiated cash pay rate, that's kind of what I take as is almost a self-pay, is like the cash basis, which we know can be negotiated down if it's paid up front. My concern with the term self-pay here, I don't think it's just hey, this is just the billed rate, because part of what they're saying here is that self-payers are typically charged at a rate agreed upon by the provider and the patient, open market rates, almost a negotiating with the provider situation, which is very different from a actual billed rate or the actual charge. And so that's my concern, is
But the next sentence says, I'm familiar with the amounts which constitute a reasonable charge for services provided or ordered within the realm of my practice when no agreement exists to stipulate a specific amount that should be paid. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but he seems to be saying that this is the reasonable amount when you don't have a pre-existing agreement.
And well, I'll wait.
Yeah, it almost seems like a, stipulated versus negotiated, but I hear you, Your Honor.
And I would just mention here that I think he's just talking about that the language, to the extent that it is questionable, is really just referring to, what a traditional, what a willing buyer and willing seller would agree to. I don't think that he's talking about a negotiated rate and what we think of in a medical provider context.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
I don't deny a whole lot of these, but I think this one kind of fits. So I'm going to go ahead and deny the motion to strike on this one. So I will say that if you had tried to do all 8, I would have struck the other 7 probably, but and there wasn't really an argument that Dr. Sharda wasn't qualified to render this opinion as I understand it. So all right. Did you submit an order for me?
Yes, Your Honor. I filed an order denying the motion to strike yesterday afternoon.
All right, I'll go ahead and get that signed. I just printed out an order. Do you mind grabbing it for me from Rhonda? All right. Anything else, guys?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Let's. You guys are excused. Interns, if you guys could wait around.
Thank you. Take care, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm here at the office. I'm here at the courthouse. So I don't have all my notes. So which team has, oh, sorry, let me turn this off.